welcome back everybody. I'm your boy, Vile Kyle. Got Trixie Tripod over there on the camera. Woke up a 2, still looking like a 2, but she's the best I can do, and that's okay. That's okay. Behind me here we have this 1953 Pontiac, and today we're going to be chopping the top on it. And by chopping the top, I mean I am going to be taking material from here, and we are going to lower down this roof. And we are going to make it into a custom car. We are making it a custom car because that is what I like, and it is my car, and I am going to do what I like with it. We are also going to chop this entire roof without using a tape measure, not even once. So this will probably make sense later, but what I'm doing is I'm going to be sinking the back glass down into the body because the back glass on this car is tempered and therefore it cannot be cut. So we can't just cut directly through here and stitch it back together, because then we won't be able to get a back glass into the car, which we kind of need. So what I'm doing is I cut out all of this to get it out of the way, all these bits of the rear seat brace. I'm going to leave the package tray intact, and then I cut through here, and what's going to happen is all of this is going to lower down and then get rejoined back to here when we're done, and the back window will end up recessed down into the body. I know this probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but it will hopefully make sense later. time to start cutting. Exciting moment here. I think we're ready to drop this thing down and see how it looks and see what else we have to cut. Okay, problem we're having here is these cars have this spring pocket thing for the trunk hinge, and I disconnected the spring from the front and then I cut through that pocket, but now the spring is still attached and it's kind of preventing things from happening. So I'm gonna have to figure out, I think, how to get that spring off of there so that we can actually, you know, sort out some of this. Decided to just remove the trunk hinges and trunk entirely for now. I don't really see any safe way of removing those springs by themselves that doesn't involve instant death. So, no big deal. Just one of those things that happens when you don't plan things out or whatever. But we'll get it sorted out. Yes, we will. Wow, that was fun. Quite the apparatus there. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't wanted to be taking this apart inside the car. I don't even think you'd be able to. It looks like you have to compress the spring and then slide out this keeper here. And because of the way we cut this apart, what I would do is just slice this clean off of here and then either just run gas struts to hold the trunk up or just a prop rod and just eliminate this because we won't be able to use it anymore when we get done messing around with this. All right, a little progress report here. We have some issues. You saw me just put a couple tack welds in the A-post here just to kind of hold it. And I like to start at the A-post and then kind of work my way back as the problems go, because I don't like the look of leaned A-posts. And because this is at a slant, when we go to line it back up, everything else on the roof is going to come ahead. And like I said, I just don't like the way that the A-posts look when they're leaned back. Just personal preference there. It's not my thing. So that means now we have a whole bunch of issues back here that we need to sort out. Starting with, obviously, this needs to come back and line up with this. So to do that, I'm going to cut up through here, across here, all the way down through here, and up into here, and move this back. Now, here's where the real problem comes in. Remember I said I was going to sink the back glass? So you can kind of get an idea of what I meant by that now. We were cutting everything free, dropping it inside the body, and then what happens with this, or generally what happens, is you cut this open through here and then move this back to meet the glass, because obviously everything is moved ahead, so this needs to move ahead as well. And then the trim, see this trim, it continues all the way through here. The trim goes on, and then you cut a fake kind of rubber seal and just urethane it onto the edge of the glass where it lines up here, however it lines up here. And then when the molding is on and that fake seal is there, it looks like it has chopped glass in it, but you still retain the stock glass, you still retain the stock seal down here, and everything still fits in like that. And then what guys do is you just kind of build like a kind of a boxed in section here, so it's all kind of boxed in, and then run a couple drains for water if water gets in. And that's how that works. It's kind of I don't know, it's not the right way to do it, but it is a way that's been done for a long time. I know Bears did it on the copper cart on the windshield, and a lot of other customizers have done this over the years. It's nothing new. The problem we have here is that most guys do this on two doors, because it's a lot easier to do this on a two-door, because we don't have this fourth door here causing issues. And I don't want to make this car into a two-door. I want to try to chop it as a four-door, just for the challenge, I guess. And you can see here's the issue we have. So this gets narrower as it comes up towards the top, and I should have, well, like I said, we're trying to do this without measuring, so these are the problems we run into when we don't measure things or plan things out. We didn't measure things and we didn't plan things out. So here's what's happened is this is narrower here, and on a two-door car this continues up, so we could just cut this and angle it in so that it fills in this gap here and it looks right. But on a four-door, without getting into major surgery on this door, which I don't want to do, and leaning the whole door and everything in to fill in this gap here, that's not an option. We're gonna have to go with plan B, which was actually the original plan A, which is a lot more work, but less work than this. But anyways, plan B or plan A, whichever you want to call it, is going to be to cut through here, lean this whole back window up like this, and then weld it. And then it is going to be recessed in this corner here, but it's not going to be recessed back here, which means we didn't have to cut it off back here. So we have more welding now, again, planning ahead, but whatever. But we would have had to cut it all through here anyways, and it's only going to be sunken in just in this area. And because, you know, the angles of everything have changed, we're going to have less of a gap here to fill, I hope. And hopefully that will solve all of that nightmarish problem. Some of you probably remember the Monster Garage 54 Chevy that they did on TV years ago. All the great customizers, Bill Hines, Gene Winfield, Dick Dean, Norm Grabowski, all those big name guys, Fat Jack. But anyways, they chopped that car, and basically what I just described to you here is what they did. They cut through here and lean the back window. So that's what we're gonna do, is kind of similar to that. Anyway, sorry for doing so much talking, but some people like it if I explain what I'm doing. And if I don't do it now, then I'll have to explain it at the end of the video, and then the end of the video is super long and it's just me talking forever. So that's what we're doing here. But if you've been watching for a while, you know we're normally like pretty heavy on the planning and measuring and things. And things generally work out pretty good for us when we plan everything out. But I gotta say, doing things by the seat of our pants is a lot more fun. This is fun, believe it or not, just figuring things out as we go. I don't think I'd want to do this on a nice car, but on this car, this is like the perfect thing. This is so much fun. This is like, we're 12 years old again. We got the AMT 3-in-1 model kit. We got a tube of glue. We got a tube of Squadron's putty, and we're just cutting away, making things work. And we don't know what we're going to end up with, but we're just going to keep at it, because the glue fumes are really helping us figure things out. What's happened here is the roof has kind of dropped down, and what we got now is a bit of a shame valley situation in the middle here. So I got a porta power kind of rigged up inside the roof here, and I'm going to put a board in somehow, and then I'm going to try to jack up this roof a little bit to kind of get everything in place before we start tack welding it together. You can see the profile's a little less shamey now, at least in the center. Obviously, we got a lot of work to do here still. Next step is to cut out these posts here, and we're gonna have to slide all of this back. So I just put a couple tack welds in this section here, and you probably notice there's a massive gap right here. And what needs to happen is, because the roof is narrower than it is here, what I have to do, you can see probably pretty obvious that this is kinked right here. So what I need to do is I need to go inside this mouse house here and do a relief cut on the inside in through here, which will allow me to tip that in, and then that gap there will tighten up and this post will become tangent with the roof. I don't like widening the roof because that's just a terrible thing. I don't think that is the right way to do it. Okay, so I got the post leaned in at the front and the back, and you can see here just how much I had to actually lean them in. The door posts I haven't touched yet, but we had to lean this in a fair bit. And just got the roof kind of stitched back on here, so we still have a lot of work to do back here to get this. Is going to be a big job here, getting all this to flow together. Still, just going to hold off on that for now. Amazing that the door's still open, but anyways, yeah, we just did a slice down here and pie cut that and leaned it in and did whatever we had to do there. You can see down here is where I pie cut the post and then just angle it in so that it would, you know, everything would fit. And I think what we're going to do next, I decided I'm going to work on the door tops next. And so for the door top, this is the front one, and you can see I have to add a fair amount of material in order to get it to go back to where it needs to be here. So that'll be a bit of a job there. Here's the back one here, and it needs some trimming and stuff to get it to line up, but needs a little bit less work than the front. So what I'm working on now is filling in this, and to fill in this I just took the piece that I cut out of here and we're gonna try to reposition it over here. Hopefully it fits. Well, you got to kind of squint right now because it's all just loosely mocked up, but I gotta say, for just goofing off, I really couldn't ask for any better than this. Uh, Especially on the first shot, and just loosely having this thing in place and just kind of guessing where the angle of the back window. Like, you do have to use your imagination a bit because there is still a dip in the roof, but just the way the glass transitions, like that's gonna work pretty good for us, I do believe, or at least to my eye anyways. Everybody's kind of got their own idea, I guess, but I really couldn't ask for any better than that, I don't think, even if I was actually trying to do a good job. So yeah, kind of funny how, like, when you don't care about how something turns out, it ends up like working out really well, and then when you actually do care, it's just an absolute battle, and you just spend like weeks or months or years trying to get it right. But yeah, I don't know, I'm quite pleased with how the whole curve of this crown transitions into the glass. I think it's gonna look fairly good when we get it all together. Again, you have to use your imagination because there's a big dip in the roof right now where the seam is through here, but overall, yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm 100% okay with that. So I think what I'm gonna do is just bend up a piece of welding rod to the shape of this glass, and then I'm gonna tack it in here, which I probably should have done before a long time ago, and then we could have avoided actually fitting the glass in at all. But anyways, once we get that, our visual line of the curve of the glass, then I can start piecing all of this back together, get this low spot out of the roof, get it all flowing how we need it, and we can have an actual visual reference without having to reinstall a glass 100 times and risk damaging it, which we definitely don't want to do, seeing as the back glass is one of the only good parts of this car. So what I'm using here, and hopefully the camera picked up what was happening, but I'm doing a process called hammer welding. This is old school. This goes back to the old gas welding days. I'm using a TIG welder, so with a TIG welder, a lot of times this is not necessary to do it this way. But in this case, we are chopping this roof, and we have these two shapes dipping in. And what I'm trying to do as I'm welding is I'm trying to manipulate these shapes together. So by hammer welding, what I'm doing is I'm welding small sections at a time, and the key here is while the weld is still hot, I immediately grab my dolly, which has a curved face on it, and I put that on the backside, and then I take my hammer on the outside and I squish the weld in between the hammer and the dolly, therefore stretching it. And by stretching it, I'm removing the distortion or the shrinkage that was caused by the welding. At the same time, because it's still hot, the metal is much easier to move around, and I'm able to kind of manipulate these shapes together. Now, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I often just do my TIG welding. I prefer to do it in one continuous pass, which freaks people out. But I just find a lot of times that is much more efficient to just do one continuous pass, let it warp, and then planish it back into shape. But in this case, like I said, with this roof, I'm trying to kind of manipulate it as I go. So I'm finding this is a good process for that. And I'll still do this from time to time. And I just thought it would also be interesting to show you kind of a different way of doing this. It's not as efficient as doing it in one continuous pass, but I guess when you're done working it, the results are the same. And in this case, I think it was the right choice, and I'll still do this, you know, if I'm welding really close to like a body line or something, and I don't want that body line to pull, I'll do this method because then I can control it as I go, because I really don't want the body line or an edge to start pulling in when I'm welding. So now when I put a straight edge on it, you can see that it's actually staying pretty straight. Again, it still needs finish work, but like that's staying pretty straight all the way through. And then towards the end here, it's starting to dip in because we're running into this this valley here. You can see. So unfortunately, you know, we can only go so far before like this shape is not going to allow us to stretch this. And work it as we weld it. Like something's got to happen here, so that's going to be the next step, is getting this so that it actually does line up and we can continue welding. But I just wanted to get this area kind of roughed in so that I'm not fighting that. Anyways, the proper way to deal with this massive, you know, misalignment and low spot here would be to basically cut this out and English wheel up a nice patch panel that would probably go, you know, all the way up through here into here, and just then weld that in and have a nice recontour here, and everything would be nice and just not butchered. But we're not going to do that, or at least we're going to try not to. We're going to do this the old school butcher way, which or we're going to try to anyways. So basically I'm just going to cut some relief cuts in here and get this to line up, and then weld up the relief cuts. This way is more fun, but not recommended at all. This is not a tutorial. This is just a junk car we're having fun with. So we're going to try to do it the old school butcher way because it's more fun. And if it doesn't work, we'll cut it out and do it properly, you know. So again, I just want to stress that this is absolutely not the way to do this under any circumstance. Basically, I'm just kind of doing this for fun. I wanted to kind of experience kind of what it would be like when the early customizers were doing this kind of work. This is what they did, and then they would sculpt it to shape with lead. We're going to be sculpting it to shape with Bondo, but it's just kind of a fun thing, but definitely, not the way to do it. And in fact, it's actually making a lot more work for us to do it this way. All right, I'm going to take a quick break from making a mess of this roof to make a mess of this area here. So what's happened is obviously the drip rail is misaligned here. I did end up dropping the roof just a little bit more over what I originally had it set at. So we're going to have to realign this, and then we also have to box in this area here. Okay, so I decided rather than chopping this into a million pieces to try and get it to fit back in here and look like something, I would just remake this piece here. Just seems like it'd be a little bit faster, so that's what we're gonna do now. Alrighty, we got about 30% of the welding done, so that means it's time to get out our product and start flooding the ocean floor. Well, there it is, folks. I just kind of tossed the back glass in, just kind of a mock-up special here. But for just goofing off over the last couple days here, aesthetically, I'm actually quite pleased with what we've accomplished here. I really like the way that the back glass is fitting, and it flows into the roof now as one kind of continuous shape. If you look at the original cars, the glass comes up like this and then goes like this. So I'm very happy that I decided to cut through the roof, angle that in, and do the way that we did. I think that is definitely the way that I would do that again. Few aesthetic things that I would change around and, you know, adjust or fix on this. But overall, for a four-door sedan, I think it looks pretty darn cool. Quality of workmanship on this is quite poor. I'll be the first to admit that, and that wasn't the point of what we were doing here. We were just kind of having fun, and you know, it is what it is. Was not meant to be a flawless thing. And as far as the proportions go, the proportions actually turned out, you know, way better than I could have ever imagined when I started this. Just for goofing off again, like I really do enjoy the way that it looks, to my eye anyways. I definitely understand now why most guys, they cut out the back window and replace it with an earlier back window. They get rid of the curved glass because it is quite a bit of work to make this all work. But when it does work, it looks cool. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think the next thing on this would be put some white walls on it, ditch the BFGs, put some 3-inch blocks on the back, get it down, nice tail dragger stance or whatever, and you know, a little of this and a little of that, and you'd have yourself a pretty cool four-door sedan cruiser. I wouldn't be too ashamed to drive around in that, even if it is a four-door. None of this was meant to be a tutorial. I was just having fun here. And hopefully this inspires somebody else to get out in their garage and work on their project or make something cool, whether you're restoring a car or building a custom or hot rod or whatever it is you like. Just put out this video just to kind of, I guess, inspire, not to necessarily educate. A lot of things I would do differently if I was actually doing this for real. Spoiler alert, this car is never going back on the road, so it doesn't really matter what we do to it. Couple observations: I definitely don't recommend the pie slice technique on the roof there. The center part that we hammer welded, that turned out decent, but this area, even with the TIG welder, you know, that's just by the time I got done slicing and welding and hammering and filling and sculpting, we could have just wheeled out a new panel and welded it in, had a way nicer result, or gone to a wrecking yard, found another chunk of roof, welded that in, and just, yeah, don't do it that way. If you want to do it, don't. There's zero reason. If you're trying to MIG weld that, holy man, it would make a mess for sure. So, but you know, just like the customizers of old, the techniques were crude, but they got us to, I guess, what we were going for as far as the look. I did not cut down all of the stainless for the back glass here because it's going to have to be modified in this corner, obviously, and I don't want to cut up the stainless because it could still be used on something else. Again, ominous foreshadowing. But anyways, this would all fit in like this, and then we would modify it so that it fits up to here and it all looks factory. You wouldn't be able to tell that the glass is in fact sunk down. I'm going to put a picture here that I borrowed from Rick Hoving's Fotkey archive of custom car pictures of a chop that Bill Hines did on I believe it was a hard top, and he used this exact same technique here, and I'll put pictures to show how he finished out the corners here. For anybody who's curious, I didn't have time to totally finish that out, but anyways, as far as this goes, I think what I would do here in this corner is there's a bit of fakery involved, so obviously the seal is still intact down here. So I think what I would do in this case, my personal idea here, is I would just extend out the original pinch weld along the glass here, and I would install the back glass using modern windshield urethane. and it would just give me a little bit more control of how it fits in here. And then once the urethane was cured, then I would modify the original gasket, the rubber gasket. I would just cut the inside lip off of it, and I would glue it on around here and just glue it directly to the glass here, so it looks like it has cut down glass even though it doesn't. And then obviously modify the stainless trim, and once that was all in place with the stainless trim and everything, it would all look factory. You wouldn't be able to tell anything had happened to it. Obviously a bit of fakery there, but I would rather have that than a plexiglass back window. I do know that you can buy laminated back glass for this new, which can be cut and modified, but it is extremely expensive, and on a car like this, you know, it's not worth putting that much money into glass and risking having it broken when the glass guy is cutting it down. So I definitely think that, you know, budget wise and just overall, I think keeping the stock original back glass, modifying this, doing a bit of fakery in this corner here, it would all in the long run be the way to go, in my opinion. Another couple of points that I think are very important when chopping a car is bracing. You probably noticed we did not do any bracing here. That's because we're just goofing off and having fun. If I was doing this car for real, I would run probably 2 braces or possible X brace through this back window opening. You don't want that moving around. In this case, we got lucky, nothing moved, but just because you can do something without doing it properly doesn't mean you should. I would highly, highly recommend bracing the back window opening before cutting the roof off. And I would also recommend bracing the B-post for sure, and possibly a brace from here to here before cutting anything off. We got away with it. You can see the doors open and close. All 4 doors open and close very nicely, and they still fit about as good as they did before we cut them off. But you know, I was able to watch and determine how things were moving around as we were working it and just keep things in a line. But yeah, I really do not recommend chopping a top without bracing the body. I know some people say you can just tackle the door shut and chop the roof off that way, but at some point you need to be able to get inside of this to accurately cut and lean and modify the pillars and everything. So that just, to me, it doesn't seem like a logical way of doing it, but to each their own, I guess. Final thing, this rear package tray, you saw we cut the entire piece out, and I had to delete those pockets for the springs for the trunk hinges. If I was to do this again, I would actually cut out around those pockets, and I would only sink down the package tray in the corners here and just leave the pockets intact, and that way I would not have to do anything else with the trunk hinges. They would all work exactly as factory. The way it is now, they would still open and close, but you would not have those springs there to assist with the opening, so you'd either have to modify it with some gas shocks or just use a steel prop rod. But, you know, if you can leave the factory geometry of the springs and everything, you know, it's definitely worth the extra little bit of work to patch this in. And on the other note of the package tray, obviously it's at quite a drastic angle here. So the way I would tackle that if I was doing this for real is I would just build another package tray that bolts in the stock, you know, angle. So it's not angled down. So I would just build a little pedestal up from here and just bolt that false package tray on top, leave all this intact, and obviously weld it all together solid. But that way, when you look inside the car, you know, your package tray is not, you know, at a weird angle. And again, it looks all stock. Sure, there's going to be a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda, why don't you just type people, experts, you know, whatever. It's easy to criticize or tell somebody how to do something after the fact. But when you're standing in front of a car with a grinder and a welder in your hands, it's a lot harder to determine how things are, especially in this case. I didn't do any prior research. I just kind of went for it. And it wasn't the point of this to have some super meticulously planned out thing. The point of this was just to have fun. I had a great deal of fun doing this particular job here. I certainly enjoyed this very much, and I enjoy the aesthetics of the final outcome. Even if the workmanship is not great, it looks cool, and that to me made it all worthwhile. I learned a few things as well, and it sure beats the heck out of watching TV, because there's nothing on TV anyways. And I don't know what this car costs. I think like $500 or something, and I already sold the stupid wheels that were on it. So, I think by the time we're done, this car is more or less a free car. And, how much fun can you even have for $500 anymore? That's legal anyways. Not a whole lot, I don't think. I know of some people who will spend $500 in one night in the bar, and they got nothing to show for it. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed our little Pontiac Chevy chop job, whatever it is. This is a Canadian Pontiac, so the rear of the body is Chevy, but it has a Pontiac engine and a Pontiac dash and stuff, so it's kind of a weird hybrid. But anyways, little different way of doing things this week. I just wanted to challenge myself and see what I could do without any planning or research or anything like that. Just see if I could work through all the problems using my brain, because I think that's something that's kind of going away nowadays. We have access to unlimited information on the internet, but in a way it kind of makes us dumber, because we're always asking Google and YouTube and whatever for the answers, and we never actually use our brain to problem solve anymore. And this is what the original customizers had to do, is they had to work through these problems themselves using their brains. There was no books or no magazines or anything like that to tell them where to cut or how to do it. If you were lucky, occasionally you get a magazine article or whatever, a short write-up and maybe a couple of grainy black and white tiny little pictures, and that's about all you had to work from. You just had to figure things out, and I wanted to see if I could do that, because I too fall into the trap of access to unlimited information making me stupid. Instead of just figuring things out for myself, I'll research it all, and I guess that's a good thing to some extent, but at the same time you have the same problem again, and you've forgotten everything because you just looked it up on your phone or whatever. I didn't actually retain any of the information. So that was the point of this, just having fun. And I wouldn't get too attached to this car, because once we're done customizing it, it's going to be getting chickenized. Longtime viewers will probably know what that's all about. And so there you go. Thanks very much for watching, and hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again next week.